from taking to the streets to taking to politics. The Yellow Vest protesters want to ride a wave of momentum in France all the way to Brussels. Now, today they announced plans to run in this year's European elections, and leading the party is a protester Ingrid Levavasseur, a 31-year-old nursing assistant from Normandy and one of the best-known faces of the Yellow Vest movement in France. Now, she is leading the party known as Citizens Initiative Rally, which hopes to run 79 candidates in the election. And the announcement comes just over 2 months since the Yellow Vest movement began. What started as demonstrations against a proposed fuel tax evolved into a movement dissatisfied with the President Emmanuel Macron and inequality. Well, violent protests broke out and some concessions were eventually made by Macron, including ditching the fuel tax. But now we are seeing that there are no signs of the protesters backing down. All right, let us start with what's happening. So the Gilets jaunes, starting from a grassroots movement, which you're a part of, to now entering politics. Do you think this is a good idea?
It's kind of difficult for me to. First of all, I want to say that I'm here to speak about my voice, my opinion, and that is very important in our movement, and that's the reason why I think that it's difficult to speak as a representative of the Gilets jaunes movement.
Okay.
And so, you can go in the street, you can express yourself on the medias, but when you're in a parliament, you will have to defend the opinion of a very large number of people who elected you. And you will have to vote for a large number.
So you don't think it's a good idea?
I don't so. I don't think
because
so.
There are too many ideas, you're saying, in the Gilets jaunes movement. Is that what you're saying?
There are a lot of ideas of a lot of things. We are together for two things. The first one is democracy. We think that the democratic system here doesn't permit a lot of people to be heard. The second one is the inequalities. And so we want to have more equality between people.
Okay, I'll go back to you on that point, but I do want to ask you, because you've been observing the Gilets jaunes as well. Do you think this could backfire, as the point he was making? There's so many different ideas and different groups, and can there actually be one leader who can represent everybody?
You said it's basically the Gilets jaunes movement in France is a grassroots movement for protesting against the rise of tax on fuels. After 2 or 3 weeks, the movement has been recovered by political parties, from far left to far right, and by conservative too. So you have been so different movements into this movement, so many revendications that I think, like Merlin, that it's not possible to make 1 or 2 revendications. When the government asks in the Grand Débat National what are the first priorities for the Yellow Vest in France, they say tax on wealth, referendum of popular initiative. So you have so many
different ideas that they want.
That is not possible to make it one, I think, in a political movement.
Sure, I want to pick up on a point that Ludovic was making when he was saying that, ideas from the far left to the far right. But now there's an association of the Gilets jaunes movement with the far right, or Marine Le Pen, from Marine Le Pen supporters who moved to the Gilets jaunes. Is that a fair assessment, do you think, of the Yellow Vest protesters?
No.
Okay.
No, I think it's just like Ludovic said, it's everything from the very far right. The old French Communist Party has also registered lists with Yellow Vests on it. In my country, the Yellow Vest has been even further to the right than the extreme right. In other countries, there have been anyways. I think the question for me would be not should they do this. The question is, could they do this? Is it possible? We're 4 months from the European election. Well, if you had asked me that a year and a half ago, I would have said, no, there's no time. They won't find the money. They won't find the support. They won't find... But then again, Emmanuel Macron won the presidency and a qualified majority in the National Assembly in a year. So I think anything is possible. It might not just work this very time because of this disparate ideas, but in terms of times, well, you never know.
But actually, what's interesting is when we look at the numbers, because there has been a new poll that shows that if the yellow vests would actually join the European elections, it's going to change the balance between the political parties. Because according to an ELAB survey released yesterday, En Marche and Movement Démocratique would get 22.5% of the votes, and 17.5% would back the Rassemblement National that is led by Marine Le Pen. So these are lower than they would if the yellow vest movement did not exist. And the yellow vest movement would take 13%. Les Républicains would receive 11.5%. So it is very interesting that with the presence of the yellow vest, politically, it would take voters from, as you were saying, from the other left, right, and put them all together in the yellow vest movement. Okay, Melanie, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think that in this poll there is one party that is not taken into account, and that's the party of the people who don't go to vote. And that is a party where a lot of people from the Gilets jaunes go. And, to speak about my country in Belgium, we have a movement here, and at the beginning, a very tiny far-right movement wanted to enter in the Gilets jaunes movement, and they were pushed back. Why? Because we don't want to be invested by political parties. We are here to express the voice of the people and not the voice of the parties. And that is very important.
So now that this is happening, they go into politics. Do you think it is a betrayal of the original idea of the movement? If Gilets jaunes becomes a political party, is it a betrayal of the movement?
I'm very interested to know how the people of the Gilets jaunes in France will react to that. But I think that they want to express themselves on the streets because they think that you have to change the things. Yesterday in Namur, it's a town in Belgium, one person died. And a lot of people said he died from the winter and so on. But we don't think so. I think that he died because of a political system that didn't allow him to live.
Okay.
And that is what we want to do. We want to change things in putting pressure in the economic and the political world.
Okay, following up on that point, I will let Ludovic answer this from a political point of view. But isn't joining the system actually the best way to get the changes that people like Merlin want? Don't you have to be in the system to change the system?
I think it's a trap. A trap for the yellow vest. After the 8th act in Paris, a French deputy asked to Gilets jaunes, are you able to go into politics, to make a real political movement? This is not, I think, an innocent question, because the street was burning, the Champs-Élysées, the protesters have shown their determination. They have burned many radars on French roads. They have destroyed some power symbols in Paris. So I think it's a trap, because when you ask on the Orange movement to go to politics, there is a fringe of the yellow vest that they say, okay, we'll go it. We'll go to the parliament.
So you think that this is a trap. Now, I want to ask Teresa, do you think that the yellow vest movement is more powerful as a protest movement or as a political movement?
Well, I mean, Emmanuel Macron actually did come out after a couple of weeks and told them he would stop the rise of prices of the fuel. He would add some to the pensionists. He would add some. So yeah, it's been a wake-up call, I think, at least for a lot of politicians, because again, whether far right or far left, they are protesting against low pensions, low purchasing power, lower salaries, and they're watching the rich and they're watching all those companies that get away without taxes. And
it did make Emmanuel Macron pay attention. I think it is a wake-up call. And I think just one point to make, that there are some that we spoke to before the show, Gilets jaunes supporters, who say that they don't want to be part of that list. So I think that's a reaction that we've also been seeing.